The visuals you see offer a powerful example of the stark difference between the lungs of an adult from Himachal Pradesh and those of an adult from Delhi. This striking contrast reflects the impact of Delhi's high concentrations of PM10 and PM2.5 particles, which carry various harmful toxins. But now, there is an even more concerning addition to the city's air pollution: microplastics. A recent study by the Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology in collaboration with Savitri by Phule University, Pune, reveals that Delhi residents are breathing in plastic particles. Microplastics have been found in three major particulate matter categories: PM10, PM2.5, and PM1. Conducted over summer and winter months, the study detected a total of 2,087 microplastic particles in air samples collected across the city.
There are microplastic fractions which are in nanometers now. Plastic is there in automobile and vehicles. Plastic is in construction material. Many of them, because of wear and tear, will get converted into nanoparticles. And therefore, they are airborne and they will get into air environment, ambient air. In fact, we are promoting use of plastic for road making. But no one is asking what happens when there is wear and tear on the road. What happens to that plastic? From industrial processes, from consumer goods, and from use of plastic in construction sector, there is enough scope for production of microplastic and for those microplastics to become airborne.
Whatever object you pick in, our clothes have microplastics, the vessels we are drinking in have microplastics, carpets have microplastics. So this particular item, even if it's not directly seen as plastic, is everywhere. And now, of course, this study that has come out is very scary, that it's not only available on the surfaces, but it's also there in the air. Now, what does that mean is that we are breathing that air.
And if you think exposure to these airborne microplastics is highest during Delhi's notoriously polluted winters, think again. In fact, the study reveals that microplastic exposure is significantly higher in the summer months. Adults in the national capital inhale nearly twice the number of microplastic particles in summer compared to winter. This is an increase of almost 97% in microplastic exposure during the warmer season.
It means more damage to the lungs. So throughout year we are at increased risk of getting more and more lung insult, which ultimately lead to the more and more harm to the body. So that is very, I think, very frightening and a situation where we have to think about it, that how can we control the exposure to these microplastics?
In fact, there are studies which show that microplastic is present in our blood, a placenta of a newborn child. We at iForest have done study on microplastic in Ganga, and we found microplastic both in water as well as sediments. So this is one more report which shows that now microplastics is omnipresent.
But even hearing this data is scary, because what we are seeing is since 2016 to 2024, the amount of microplastics that has increased in the world is almost by 50%. So the impact that we're going to see is probably something in the next 5-10 years where we'll get to see how it's, harming us and harming our brain and body in general.
The research is still at a nascent stage. A lot more research has to be done to actually, have a firm opinion on exact impact of microplastics on our health.
The study warns that prolonged exposure to microplastics may increase the risk of bronchitis, pneumonia, lung inflammation, and even cancer.
In lungs, the initial damage which they cause inflammation of the airways, and those people who have a more sensitivity or those who have more allergic symptoms, or they have more prone to allergies, they develop more symptoms by the exposure of these small particles PM 2.5 and PM 10. If there is a consistent or continuous insult over the lungs, it can convert it into asthma. Even it can cause a recurrent pneumonia, the bronchitis, and in long term it can also cause cancer. Even the bronchial asthma and the bronchitis, it leads to more and more hospitalization and leads to more and more morbidity in these subset of patients.
So the nerve that through which we breathe, which activates when we breathe, when we smell something, is called the olfactory nerve. Now that goes into something called the bulb, and that is connected to the brain, and that further goes into the brain. So right through our nose, our brain is getting a pathway to get those microplastics into our brain, which actually is a very scary thing. Our brain has a protective layer called the blood-brain barrier, and usually our brain tries to protect that brain from anything crossing that blood-brain barrier and getting into the brain. But what we have seen with studies, animal studies that have been done, they show that these microplastics actually cross the blood-brain barrier and deposit into the brain. And the levels of what we see in these microplastics in the brain can be up to sometimes 30 times more of what we might find maybe in the liver or kidney or other organs. We see that it's causing cell death and eventually causing tissue injury. Although we don't have a direct cause right now, but even in people with dementia, when we did autopsies, what they found was that there was a 3 to 6 times more presence of microplastics in those brains compared to the others. So they did a study in a very famous journal called New England Journal, NEGM, and what they found was that in the carotid arteries, now these are the main arteries that supply the brain, the plaque or the clot that was over there, when they took that out and when they studied it, they found the plaques that had high level of microplastics compared to those that did not, there was a 4.5 times more chance of dying of a heart attack, of a stroke, or death in general in the following next 3 years, which is very, very scary.
And also the particle size of less than 2.5, they can even travel through the blood and goes into the heart, into the brain, and they may cause the same damage which can be caused by the toxic gases which are of same size.
Nowadays we're seeing so many young people die with heart attacks, sudden cardiac death. Nobody knows what to blame on. But could it be microplastics? Only time will tell. I think as we study this further, we'll get to know. We know impact is there. We know when we look at otherwise particulate matter, we know because of pollution, when we are breathing this in terms of the brain, it does affect, it can cause headaches, it can cause confusion, it can cause brain fog, it increases your risk of stroke, it increases your risk of high blood pressure, it increases your risk of having heart attacks, it increases lung issues, and everything is interconnected. Children are more prone to breathe in these microplastics. It can actually deposit in their brain much more, and so can it cause developmental issues and behavior issues as we go older? Only time will tell. But whatever data we are seeing so far is not giving the right signals and is definitely very concerning.
It is largely because of the amount of plastic that we are consuming. We are consuming close to 70 million tons of plastic every year. Plastic is one of the major industrial material that we consume, and we are mismanaging plastic.
Now, How can we reverse it? Unfortunately, the government has to make policies to decrease these particulate matters in the air. We as humans, when we are living in that environment, we have no choice. Do our kids have a choice? They are not realizing that if they do not take the steps today, they're basically spoiling the future in the next 10-15 years. What will happen to our kids if everybody starts, or a big portion of people start having behavior issues, big portion of kids start having developmental issues or memory problems, then where will this world go? End of the day, it's the human mind that innovates. It's the human mind that thinks. So I feel that it's really important that at least we see it from a perspective of nothing else, that at least let's protect the brain.
To control it is the only cure. So if we are not able to control it, then nobody can protect themselves from the exposure. So I think just like the pollution, now the next target is the microplastic.
We do not have currently any medicines that can dissolve microplastics. In fact, the research is very early to even understand the impact. I know we tell people wash your hands, be careful, do all of that, but now this is air. What can you do? You will have to breathe. That's an innate thing. So unfortunately, there's no medicine as of now to dissolve these microplastics, at least whatever the data shows us.
There was an international negotiation on plastics which has failed. As you know, after 2 rounds of final negotiation, countries, and including India, opposed any regulation on curtailing plastic use. But without curtailing plastic use, we cannot solve plastic pollution problem. Treatment for microplastic is no plastic. If we think we can manage plastic pollution only through recycling and reuse and better management, then it has not happened in any part of the world. Even in Western world, recycle only about 10% of the plastic. It is actually the 3rd largest industrial material that we consume after cement and steel. And unfortunately, we are not working a lot on the alternatives.
But all we know is that the levels are increasing. We know for a fact that we are breathing it. We know for a fact that our nose is the direct pathway to have these microplastics reach the brain. We as people, we can wash our hands regularly, follow the same protocol as we did in COVID, wear masks, wash our hands, be careful of what we're doing. But I think there is still a limited amount of what we can directly do because we are surrounded by these microplastics everywhere we are at this point.
Microplastics in Delhi's air are more than just pollution. They are a serious health risk. If we don't act now, it may be too late. Nivriti Mohan, News9.